Good afternoon, friends. Another bestseller by the grace of God. Today I am proud to introduce Christian Controversies, Loving Homosexuals. As you can see from the title, these are illustrious books dealing with issues that in our contemporary times may be categorized as controversies. Now, in the life of Christ, there were many controversies, and not even in his life, but also before he became Christ, when he was in the form of God above in heaven. There were controversies dealing with lepers, tax collectors, prostitutes, and in the time of Sodom and Gomorrah, we saw homosexuals. Now, the difficulty in our times is that rarely do you see a minister of the gospel, a preacher or a pastor, devote adequate time to teaching his congregation or a congregation about pertinent issues they have to face. Let me give a good example. I share two very important destinies in terms of nations. I live in Canada. I'm also Zambian. What you find in Zambia is that homosexuality is still considered antisocial or antisocial, unsocial, or a sin, whatever the case or the term that might be ascribed to it. In Canada, in 2005, Canada officially legitimized same-sex marriages. So Canada accepts homosexuals and has given them their rights. But if you go back to Zambia, Zambia accepts people that are considered to have engaged in polygamous marriages. In Zambia, it is acceptable, especially in customary law. If you came to Canada, if you took a second wife, you'll find yourself in jail, because Canada does not accept polygamous marriages. So there are issues, situations, which many Christians confront on a day-to-day basis most of the times. But they have inadequate information or how to navigate them. I introduced to you one in the first series, Christian Controversies, Loving Homosexuals. I think the title is self-explanatory. Before you read this book, do not judge it and do not judge me. Understand, I wear two hats. One as a Christian, the other one as an intellectual. At the same time, I understand the laws that define behavior in many parts of the world. What I'm trying to do in this little book is to give a taste, is to give a guideline, how a Christian who finds themselves being inundated by information, forces, and sometimes, for lack of a better term, condemnatory regards because of their either lack of understanding about homosexual issues, or because they have spent most of their time in the church and they have no other view. Loving homosexual does not in any way enunciate a proclamation that in countries, say for instance in Africa, where homosexuality is illegal, this book does not mean that when you take it to Uganda, for example, that Ugandans will be forced to love homosexuals in the way in which their law ascribe that relational aspect to the nation. However, there are principal facts in here that enables every Christian understand how to relate to people who might define themselves as homosexuals. This book is barely 45 pages, but it argues from 4 angles: political angle, legal angle, spiritual angle, and personal angle. Now, when you are confronted with the issues about homosexuals, most of the time you only approach it from the spiritual angle, and that's where the problem is. That's the only view probably you have come to understand. However, you are required to exercise some freedom to look at matters from all perspectives and then formulate your ideal reaction to that issue. Jesus had to face situations that were as controversial as this issue today. Remember when he invited Zacchaeus to go and dine in his own home. At that time, Israel was under colonial rule. Tax collectors had given themselves to Roman rule to inflict pain and chagrin and injustice by collecting more than Rome required. And Romans loved them because Romans had to use a system akin to how Europe colonized Africa, Britain especially. Lord Lugard proposed a concept known as indirect rule. That way, Africans would fight their own chiefs instead of fighting the British government officials, because those who were implementing those draconian rules and laws weren't directly involved with the people. The same happened in Israel. The Israelites themselves could not go direct to Rome and complain because Romans were using Jewish tax collectors. And when Jesus associated one of those tax collectors, it was an uproar. Many people thought he had become a sinner. In fact, if you read the Gospels, Jesus was constantly being categorized as a sinner. It might shock most of you, because spending time with a prostitute like Mary Magdalene or with a tax collector earned him the name a sinner. He became like them. But you know the end of the story, that without those aspects of attitudinal approach, probably the gospel wouldn't have reached many parts of the world the way it is and touched many lives. I attempt in this little book to give you a basis to argue your case intelligently, dutifully, understandably, legally, politically, socially, as well as personally. This is the book to get. Fortunately for us, again, this book has reached bestseller on Amazon. Thank you.